what the IBCP is a different way of achieving the same kind of diploma, right? It carries exactly the same weight as a DP diploma, but in a different way. CP is not, we will be, when we get it in 2 weeks' time, we will be the first school in this entire area that has it. It's very popular in Western Europe, the Americas. In America, many schools have the CP. In Asia, many of the schools have the CP, and it's starting now to filter into England as well. But we know from our historical point of view that most of you are not going to go and study in England. Most of you are going to stay in Europe, or you're going to stay possibly in the Americas, or you might go back to your own country. The idea of this is to then give you the option to go to universities with two different kinds of diplomas. Right, let us get the screen up and we can start. And what the CP is basically the idea of, if we try and judge everyone according to the same standard, not everyone is going to succeed, because we all have different talents, we all have different areas of expertise. The CP allows you to then develop that. So, at BSS, we've got the checkpoint. Those of you like Grisha who've been with us for a long time, you know the checkpoint in year 6, the checkpoint in year 8. You do your IGCSEs, which you're going to be doing in a few weeks' time. And then we only used to have the DP option. But now, after the inspection in 2 weeks' time, we will also then have the CP route as well. All right? Now, this will be explained. You all know the IB learner profile. So you will become very, very familiar with the IB learner profile. And you know it already, but especially from next year onwards, everything you do revolves around those qualities, those characteristics. The IBCP is exactly the same, right? So you're not going to have any different learner profile attributes. So whether you are with the CP or the DP, the idea is the same, but it's delivered in some background, okay? The IB goes back to 1968, right? That's when it first started. So it's a program that's been going for over 50 years. The DP program came in where is the DP? I can't even see where the DP is. There we go. Diploma program, 1968. The CP is much younger. It only started in 2012, so it's a very, very new program. And the reason they did with this, because they realized that the IB DP is not necessarily the best route for everybody. So we need to try and find ways for people to get the same level, but in a different way. So what they did was that in the 2000s, they identified, so the program you're going to possibly start in 2021, 22 already started 20 years ago. They started planning this. So it's not something brand new, right? They put it into practice in 2010, so 11 years ago, they started pilot schools with the CP program. So they've had 10 years of getting to know what works and what doesn't work, okay? And we are now the product of that. And so they started in 2012, okay? So, what is the CP? The CP is basically a different circle to the one you know. The one you see around the school is the blue one, right? And if you notice, those of you who are observant, and I'm sure most of you are, you'll see that there are different things in the circle. If you look at the IBDP circle and the IBCP circle, there are different areas of focus. Okay, so it's not exactly the same, especially the circle here, because it changes. DP gives you the option of this is how it's set out. We've got our CAS, we've got our TOC, we've got our EE, we've got all of those things we do, and we can plan a little bit. But with the CP, we have a lot of control over what we do, how we assess you, and how we present the program to you. So there's a lot more. So what you get at our school might be completely different to another CP school. Now, you'll see this poster going up soon enough about the 10 reasons why to choose the DP. Now, I'm not saying the DP is better than the CP. I'm not saying the CP is better than the DP. What I'm saying to you is, I'm hoping you'll be able to think about which route is the route you'll be more comfortable with. That's what I want you to look at. So, what I really want to look at here is number 3. It integrates the academic, but the practical as well. All right? So you'll see how the course works in a little bit. So those will go up. There's one in the foyer already, so you can actually see it if you wish. But those are the things that will focus the CP. Okay, why the CP? The first thing that we need to look at is that back in 2016, now I have data for 2018, but the 2016 data is very interesting because basically what Universities are saying what businesses are saying is that schools are not preparing students for the real world. Okay? And that's why the IB came into being, was that they wanted it to be a bit more outside of the box. So what they were looking at here was that businesses were not satisfied with school leavers' work experience. Now, we don't do work experience, but in England, in year 10, it is compulsory for every student to do 2 to 4 weeks work experience. Okay, so you have to go out and you've got to find a job and you do 4 weeks of work experience. It is part of the curriculum, right? International schools don't necessarily do that. We have the option to do it. At the moment, we haven't planned to. But their skills in communication, 50% of companies said students who leave school are not able to communicate effectively, right? And in the world you are going into, communication is key, right? How you speak, what you say. Analysis and self-management. Now the CP is all about self-management, because what they were finding in England, and I think this is probably in other countries as well, was the fact that people don't know how to manage their time. And this is not me blaming you because you're young. A lot of people struggle with time management. Now the CP, this is one of the things you have to weigh up when you're looking at the DP or the CP as a program. So, what are the benefits for you, but also for your parents? Basically, it is a lifelong learning skill set. Okay, so they're going to teach you things, you're going to be doing things that are a little different to the DP students if you choose this course. It is very real world. Okay, so the idea behind this is not to have it in a textbook per se, but how do we apply this to real world situations? So when you leave and you go out to your university or you go to your apprenticeship or you go and start a business, you have some of those skills on a slightly smaller scale, but you have those skills to become effective in those fields. International mindedness is obviously most important because one of the areas of the CP is all about cultural understanding and identity. And we'll look at that. So it does give you that idea. You as a group of students have a bigger world to look at than I did when I was your age. It was just not possible for us to travel as much as you can. You are looking at businesses, you are looking at work all over the world. When I was your age, it was my country. That was about as much as you could do. Whereas you have the opportunity of being anywhere in the world and being any kind of person making money and having a business and having a career. So we have to change the skills for you, and it's up to us to make sure we do that. This is an alternative to the DP, and it gives you the opportunity to pursue higher education to university. The CP is acknowledged and recognized by universities, so you don't have to worry about that. But this is the other thing, is you could use this possibly to then go into an apprenticeship, or you can go straight into employment. So this is based more around the skills you would need if you decide you want to start your own business one day. You may not want to go to university, but this allows you to have that experience of what it's like to deal with these kind of things. So what's the difference between the two? Okay, the IB CP program is very specialized. It's very, very focused, and you'll see why in a moment, because it only focuses on 1 or 2 areas. That's it, right? Whereas the DP encompasses 6 academic subjects: CAS, TOC, extended essay, and all the other things that go with it, right? This program, the careers related program, is career focused, okay? Now, I know that many of you, I've spoken to parents, I've spoken to some of you, and many of you are already pretty much aware of what you want to do, and a lot of you want to go into some form of business, all right? Whether it be from an accounting point of view, whether it be from opening up your own business, whether it be from working with other businesses. But this seems to be the biggest focus that I've heard over the last 3 years with the DP here, of where students want to go. This draws from a number of academic areas, 6 groups, right? You choose from 6 groups, okay? Now, when we look at this, it looks as though this is pretty much the easier choice. But what I do need to say to you is that the CP is not easier than the DP. It's challenging in a different way, and this is how. Right, the workload. It is as challenging as the DP, as I've said. It is as challenging as the DP, but in different way, right? These programs are pre-university programs. They allow you to go into a university and be confident learners in that first year. Okay, there's a lot that you'll know that other people may not because they've not done the DP. There is a lot more. In the CP, there is a lot more independent study, and there's a lot more self-discipline organization. There's a lot more that's put on you as students, right? So it's not a case of us necessarily saying, this is when it's done, this is when it's done, this is what you need to do. The CP is very much about how you manage your time and how you put your things. Obviously there are deadlines because that's part of the world, but this is very much student-led. You will possibly, depending on which one you choose, have more hours than the DP or less hours than the DP. Your school day is still the same. But, and I'll show you a schedule in a little bit, but it does mean that depending on how many subjects you choose or what you choose, you may find that some days you have less to do than academically than your DP colleagues, but on other days you may have more. And there, as I say, a lot more that you may have to do on your own independently and looking out for things. Now, this was done, and Grisha might remember because this comes from the presentation I did when you were in year 9. The term dates may vary. Now for the grade 11s and the grade 12s already, as Miss Emmy will tell, they have longer academic years. They are here 2 weeks after everyone else finishes, and they are 2 weeks back before everyone starts because of the program. Now with the CP, that may be the same situation as well. It may be, it may not. It depends on the choices that you make. Okay? I hope you understand that with the CP there's a lot more of what you are going to choose. You will be the first cohort to go through it, those of you who decide to choose the CP. So the choices are not as wide because we're not going to be able to offer 100 different choices if there are only 3 people. So we have to obviously look at what's available. So it's divided into 3 areas. It's divided into the DP section. It's divided into the main part, which is the core, the light purple, and then the careers-related study or training. Now for your cohort, there won't be that training. You won't have to go out and find work for your summer holidays, all right? Because you're the first year group, so we don't want to send you out quickly. This here, the light purple, those 4 are the most important part of this program. And this is where it completely changes from the DP. So, let's go through those. Let's start at the top one. If you see, everything around that is the DP and the careers. In the middle is the main part of what the CP is about. This is what your focus is going to be, those 4 areas. We're going to talk through them now. Okay, let's start with the DP because it's an IB program, so there has to be some kind of DP area to it as well. So, what you can do here is, you can choose, as you can see, here is the one you know, right? There are the 6 groups, okay? And most people choose 5 of those groups in the IB, okay? Here, you'll notice that the diploma program courses are also still there, but they're not in the 6 groups, because this is the reason. You must, for this program, successfully complete a minimum of 2 DP subjects. So not 6, but 2, okay? You can do up to 4. I wouldn't suggest it the first time round, okay? But you can, if you wish. You can choose them in any mix. You can choose higher level, higher and standard. It's up to you. You decide what you want to do. The difference is that we obviously can't offer everything. So you will have some choices within what we can offer as a school. You have to pass, if you take 2 of the subjects, you must pass those 2 subjects with at least a 3, okay? If you take more, you still only have to pass 2, okay? So you have to think about the potential of what you are doing at that time. Okay, now the DP subjects, let me just break this down for you. If you are taking higher level subjects, you have 240 hours, and Miss Nomi will do this with Miss Emmy when you do the DP. A higher level subject is 240 hours per subject over the 2 years. But it's not really 2 years, because your second year, grade 12, actually finishes, well, they're already finished. So you really have, about a year and 4 months. If you take standard level, it's 150 hours. right? So if you take 2 standard level subjects, you have less DP time than if you take 2 high level subjects. These are taught with the DP candidate, so you do it together. It's not a different program, same program, right? You will need to fulfill the requirements of those. So if you take English, you have to fulfill the IB requirements for that. You also have to sit the external examinations for those 2 subjects, okay? And you need to pass a minimum of 2. Now, this is where the IB is very, very particular. You may not have more than 5% absence in an IB program over 2 years, okay? That counts at our school as 67 sessions or 8 days, right? Otherwise, you haven't, according to the IB, fulfilled the criteria, okay? So everything, do you see how time management comes into this? With the IB, it has to be around time, and we're very strict on our time because when we have our inspections, I have to prove that you've been at school for that time. These are the subjects at the moment that we are able to offer. Why have we chosen these? Because most of the students that we've spoken to, and I've spoken to in the past, want to go down a business route, right? Group 1, English language and literature, Bulgarian literature. Spanish ab initio, German ab initio, and English B. Business management and mathematical studies. Now at the moment, we've got them as high level and standard level. That may change. That we'll decide depending on how many people take it up. So, PPS. Now we're going to the core. Do you remember those purple parts, the 4 purple parts? PPS is the most important one, and that is your personal and professional skills. It's 90 hours. The minimum that you have to put in is 90 hours over 2 years. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but you have to evidence it. Okay? And it's not for the teachers to evidence it for you. You have to produce the evidence for the teachers. Okay? It sounds a lot, but if you actually follow the time management, it's actually really, really not that difficult. This part here is we create it. Okay? We create PPS. And it is the longest of the core programs because it starts in the September of grade 11. Okay? It's 90 hours minimum. You will do more. Now, let me show you the themes. Applied ethics, effective communication, intercultural understanding, personal development, and thinking processes. Now, those are the 5 areas that they will look at. They are essential. If you remember the slide previous, or a little bit earlier on, those were the things that businesses were saying schools are not preparing students to be able to be successful in doing. So this is it. The assessment, because we have to assess you, is designed by the school. Okay? It doesn't have to be necessarily a test. It can be presentations. It can be little projects that are put together. It may be little bits for each unit. But we decide on that. The teachers design the assessment. So before we go into it, they will have designed the assessment. The IB does not design that assessment. The learning outcomes, and we'll look at the learning outcomes, and the assessment must be varied. So we can't just test you. We have to prove that we've assessed you in different ways. This is one of them that has to be included on your report. So every term we have to have on your report a PPS mark. Okay? Because we need to show that evidence. We have to show evidence of planning, organization, and delivery. So we have to get a program together. We have to show how we've planned for it. We have to show how we deliver it. But we also have to show what the students have brought to the table. There are 5 learning outcomes. And they're relatively easy. These are things that your PPS teacher will speak to you about at the beginning of PPS in September. They are identify your own strengths and develop areas for growth. That's relatively simple. If you have been in any of the lessons, especially the reflective project lesson, the extended, what is it that Ms. Janetta does?
The extended writing.
You like the extended writing, but all those kind of things where you've been thinking about where your plan is and where you're going, this will come into play now. Apply thinking processes to personal and professional situations. Do you see that working along the business line? Professional situations. Recognize and be able to articulate the value of cultural understanding, the appreciation of diversity. You are going to be, as the leaders of the next generation, you are going to be in contact with a whole lot of different people from a whole lot of different countries. And this is one of the small ways that we can prepare you for that. Demonstrate skills and recognize the benefits of communicating effectively and working collaboratively. You won't have to do this on your own. There is some times where you will be able to do things in groups. And the last one, consider the ethics of choices and actions. And I think that's the important one, is this is very ethical. Why am I doing it? What is the purpose? And what is the effect that this will have on me, on other people, on the environment, on whatever it is? You've got to look at that from an ethical point of view. Right. So, there are the 5 that we spoke about. These are the topics. Ethical dilemmas. So we'll talk about ethical dilemmas. You'll speak about them. You'll look at them. So we're not going to just throw you in. We'll give you examples, we'll talk about them, and you can then start seeing what your thought process is. If you do business, you know case studies, they will do case studies. And then professional ethics, because personal ethics and professional ethics are very different. And if you are going to have a business or you're going to be successful in life, you've got to think about your professional ethics as well. Interpersonal skills, communication, literacies and self-expression. Miss Lilia deals with a lot of that. Those are so important because you need to be able to be very confident in those in order to be successful in the world. Cultural identity, cultural diversity, and intercultural engagement. Again, you are going to meet a lot of people. Your business might become international. You need to know how to work with those people. You need to know how to work with different countries, different people, different systems. And then your thinking processes, and this is where you've already had some experience of critical thinking, creative thinking, and then the application of thinking, because the idea of the CP is not just to think about it, but how do you apply it to all of these situations? That is key for me, is the application of your thinking, right? So these are the things that you will be assessed on. And it could be in a project. It could be in a presentation. It doesn't have to be, and Ms. Borie's very involved in this part of it, so she knows what is expected of that part of the program. Right, service learning. Now in the DP, you have CAS. You have creativity, activity, service. In the CP program, you have service, right? So it's only one of the 3, and it's 50 hours. It's very similar to CAS. And it will have to relate to your careers-related program, your professional and personal, the PPS program, and your reflective project. So these things are all together. This is where it's a little different to the DP, where they are all separate. The CP is together. Everything relates together. And it's transferable skills between the different cores, and it is project-based learning. So it's what we do as a school. Right? It's what we do as a school. So you actually have the advantage because you know about project-based learning. Okay. Right. What do you need for service? Okay. You can decide that you want one service learning experience over 2 years. Or you can do a whole lot of little ones throughout the 2 years. Okay? Which is really, really good because some of you may want to stay with the program over 2 years. Some of you may want to try different things. Right? There is a service learning portfolio. This is your evidence. What is in red is what the evidence is that we need to give to the IB, right? You have to produce a service learning portfolio. And we give you the different headings for the folder. So you know exactly what to put into that folder. Throughout the 2 years, you are expected to do 3 formal interviews. Just 3, right? It's pretty much up to you to make the arrangements with your teacher. There is a time in which you must do it, but it is for you to speak with the teacher to make the time for that interview. And there are specific times of when you can do it over the 2 years. In this period of time is when the teacher will speak with you and guide you. Okay? And then you need to achieve the 5 service learning outcomes. Okay? What is service learning? It must meet a community need. Now, Ms. Borie with the grade 11s and the grade 12s and previous grade 11s and 12s, we have a huge selection of community needs that we actually work with and for. All right? So you won't necessarily have to start from scratch, but you can find your own community need. You must get a benefit for you and the community. Okay, so it must benefit both. You must develop those working relationships. Through Ms. Borie and the CAS, we already have many of those relationships with the community, so we can continue those with the CP. So again, if you're stuck, we have Ms. Borie who will be able to give you ideas about where you can go with this, right? You can do this on your own, or you can do it as a group. So again, you can work on your strengths, you can work on your skills, right? But that goes back to communication and working collectively. There will be reflection. You need to reflect on what you do, and whether you're in the DP program or the CP program, reflection is key. Everything you do is about reflection, and it builds on the skills you have and develops new ones. Okay? The 5 stages: inventory and investigations. Obviously, you're investigating what you're going to do. Preparation, planning. How am I going to do it? Thinking skills, right? Action. How am I going to do them? Reflection. How did they go? And then demonstration, showing what I've done. So again, presentations. What? Your responsibilities are pretty simple. You plan, and there they are. Okay? You will have a mentor or a teacher or the CP coordinator who will be able to help you with this, right? You implement your plan, okay? And you do this with your CP coordinator. They don't tell you what to do, they guide you, okay? And you need to keep a log of it, and then you reflect on it. You question it, you see what you can do better. Maybe you want to do little projects, you may change things. This is very student-led. You will get the stuff you need for your folder. We will help you, but it's pretty much down to you what you want to choose to do. There's a lot of choice in this. Right, the outcomes are 5, I think. And they are, well, first of all, your service learning is around that, but there are 5. So, identify own strengths and areas for development and growth, demonstrate participation with service learning experiences, demonstrate the skills and recognize the benefits of working collaboratively, demonstrate engagement with issues of a global significance. This is important because as an IB student, we look as global citizens. We have to be global thinkers. And we already prescribe to the United Nations Sustainable Goals, right? And one of them is number 13, and we do that about the environment. So again, this is very important, global significance. What is your project going to do that affects the world? It could be hunger, it could be poverty, it could be education, it could be anything, but they are big ideas that affect the world. Recognize and consider the ethics of choices and actions. Again, the ethics behind it. Do you see how so far everything is linking? They're all overlapping. Okay, language development. This is number 3. 50 hours is the expected amount, and it's oral communication, visual interpretation, reading and writing. So, it has to be a language that is not your first language. Alright? It has to be a language that is not your best language. Alright? And that you have studied in context. Appreciation of different perspectives. It's not about learning a new language. Please don't think that you have to now learn a new language. It's about how you apply that language. So it's a little different to what you would do if you went into Miss Borry's German class, for example. Alright? And it is related to your careers project. Right? So again, it's linking in. And it provides the opportunity for creativity. Again, going back to those first slides. Now, these are the requirements for the language development part. It has to be a language in addition to your best language. It's not exam-based. You're not tested on it. Okay? There is no exam. There is a full portfolio. Right? You have to develop the language development portfolio, and there are certain areas which we give you. We tell you exactly what goes into your portfolio, right? And you just need to fulfill those requirements. Now, there are different ways that you can fulfill this language development criteria. Every single person who does part of this has to do a language portfolio. All right? Again, we give you the basics, we give you the skeleton, we help you, and we then develop that language. So, for our choices, if you decide that you are going to choose business and maths as your 2 DP subjects, you don't have a language. You still have to study one. So you have to then go through one of these routes. Okay? Now the one in red is probably for us as a school, and for the first time, one of the most less stressful, shall we say, ways of doing it. The reason I say this is because one of the teachers who are doing the CP program have actually spent time for the last few months doing one of these programs and has learned Swedish. Okay? Just because she could, right? You can choose to enroll in a school-based language course, but for us, the Duolingo is the easiest, and I'll explain why. Because you can evidence what you're doing, right? Because you have to evidence everything. Duolingo I saw at a school in Hong Kong for this part of the process, and it works really well because you have evidence of exactly how much time you've spent doing it. You have the printouts for your portfolio of how you have progressed. So in essence, it's done for you. You can, of course, find a language program outside of the school, but then you have to pursue that, right? You have to find the place, you have to make sure that the evidence is there, right? Do you see that a lot of this is student-led, and a lot of it is time-sensitive, okay? If you do decide to take a subject with the language course, you need to complete 50 hours of the language development. So if you do, for example, the ab initio in Spanish, you'll need to do an extra 50 hours above that ab initio to fulfill the goal. And you would need to obviously then do a language portfolio as well. But if you take 2 DP subjects and you add a third, language, that we offer, then you do not have to do the language development part. You still have to do a portfolio, but you don't have to do the 50 hours. 3 parts. Section 1 of your portfolio is your profile. So these are questions that are set by the IB which you need to answer. That's it. It's that simple, right? It's to give you an idea of where you are. And the process is not that you're supposed to improve from A1 to C1 in language, right? You could stay in the same category the whole way through, but it's how you've used that language and understood the language. It's about understanding the language and the culture. It's not about learning a new language, right? The second part is your experiences. So your reflections on your target language, and your tutor, your coordinator, they will sit with you and work out these questions, what you need to look at. And then finally the evidence. Now if you're going to do that, the evidence is really easy because Duolingo produces it for you. All right? So you just need to do the program, prove the hours, and you're fine. Okay? Now, language development, Duolingo has changed. Those of you who have not been onto Duolingo, the reason that I like it, and I've seen it work in America, they do a lot of this. In in Asia, they're doing a lot more. You just sign up, it's free. Right? You go in where you want to, and you do what you need to. So with the language development, again, what I'm saying to you is that it's not about learning another language. Right? It's about how you understand the language. And again, this is why looking at Duolingo, it used to just be with Duolingo, you click on it and learn a language. But what they've now done is that they've been very focused on what you want the language for. Now, if you're going to do the careers-related program, and you're focusing down the business route, because that's the route that we're going to go firstly, you're going to look at language of a business orientation. Okay? You're not going to necessarily look at language for fun. Okay, with Duolingo, when you go in, this is what you see, right? You will see what you're learning the language for, okay? Now, my suggestion would be something along the lines of culture, job opportunities, or possibly travel. That would be where you would look at the language, all right? Because that would fit in with the whole business idea. But we'd look at what PPS is going to do, what Reflective Project is going to do, and you can decide from there. And the good thing is that you can choose how much time you want to spend on it. For me, this makes it much easier to do the language component for the CP because everything is evidence. Nobody can say you didn't do it. And because you're not examined on it at the end, it's not that, okay, fine, Mansour studied, I don't know, pick a strange language, okay, Swahili, right? And he decides to study that but doesn't do well in it. He's not going to fail the language component because that's not what it's about. What it's about is, does he understand how he can use that? How does he know about the culture? The final bit is the reflective project. Now this one is really important because you don't start the reflective project in September, you only start it in January of your first year. Right? So the first 3 months from September to January you work on PPS, right? That's why PPS is more hours. But in order to be able to do the reflective project, you have to be able to have done the PPS, so the ethics and all that. Now, the reflective project is the only part of the core that is assessed by the IB. Okay? We mark it, but they check it. Right? So it doesn't go out as an exam, but we have to be sure that what we're doing is correct. So basically, you have to produce a piece of extended work, like the extended essay that the DP students do. This is something similar, but you will have a choice, right? This is a personal inquiry, and it's about ethics. It's about dilemmas. It's about situations, world situations, and you have to choose one, but from PPS you'll be able to get those ideas. You present an argument. Now, for those of you who've been with us for a while, we've had some time where you've actually had classes about research and citation and things like that. This is where it comes in now. Okay, the reflective project is 50 hours. You will need more time than 50 hours, right? It needs to be a local or global issue. Community, sorry, develop research and communication skills and critical and creative thinking. If you look at what is being written on all of these different core areas, they all have the same words because they are linked, right? You have to identify an issue. Now, you don't have to identify this issue on your own. You'll have your PPS teacher, but you'll also have your reflective project teacher to help you, right? They are not necessarily going to tell you what to study or what to research, but they will give you ideas. It has to be an ethical dilemma about this, right? Ethical is the word that you're looking for there, and you will study those. You have to look at a critical discussion of that, and you have to look at different viewpoints, research. And then a personal and relevant evaluation of the ethical dilemma, right? Now, there are two ways you can do this to present, because you're going to have to present it, right? And there are two ways. Option one is a written essay of a maximum of 3,000 words, right? That sounds like a lot, but ask the grade 12 students when they're writing, most of them are struggling to cut it down rather than actually finding information. There are reflections, you have to do 3 reflections, and that is a maximum of 1,000 words, right? So there's overall, for that, it's 4,000 written words, okay? If you choose the other, it's a written essay of 1,500 words to 2,000 words, but with that, you can either do a film, you can do a presentation, you can do an interview, you can do a play, you can do a display, you can do anything to take up the extra 1,500. It doesn't have to be 1,500 words, but that is the option. So if you want to write a shorter piece, you can then do the rest of the presentation of your reflective project in a different manner. However, the reflections stay the same, 1,000 words over 3 reflections. This is internally marked, the IB checks it, and you have to achieve a D. Now, the highest mark you can get for this is 36 marks, right? So a pass is about 11 marks at the moment, and this is what it looks like. Okay? There are 5 categories that you are marked on, okay? Now, unfortunately, it would be lovely if you got 12 marks there and got finished, done, I passed. Because you actually have to hit all of them, in essence. And there are some, like Miss Emmy will say to you, and we'll deal with this later, that you actually really have to be able to do, because if you don't get this right, and you don't necessarily get the context right, you can't really do your essay properly, because you've missed the point, okay? So you have to look at what they are looking for, and this will be assessed by the school. All right? We now move out of the core and we go into the last part, which is the careers-related part. Okay? And this is offered and awarded by an external body. It's not awarded by the school. Right? It has to be from somewhere outside of the school. And the reason for this is it has to have a specific career focus. It must be taught with the CP. It must show a clear pathway out of school. And it can be delivered by other teachers or our own teachers. Now, at the moment, it'll probably be our teachers that will offer the course. But the certificate comes from an outside place. Okay? So, there we go. It has to be by a government body, an awarding body, an employer organization, or a university. They have to be, one of those have to give this recognition. Okay? obviously the choice we're going for is business, because throughout the world, 53% of all schools who offer the CP, and that's quite a few thousand schools, offer business. It is the most requested CP course, followed by the rest. We will try and get more of these in as we get more students into our cohorts. But at the moment, business, because there is so much out there and so many of our students are going down the business route, it is the logical choice to take. It also means that there's a lot of resources out there. Okay, assessment. There are 3 areas of assessment. The first area would be our diploma program, which is externally assessed, so we're coming to the end, bear with me. The second is our core. Everything is assessed inside except the reflective project. And then finally, the careers related, which is given outside of the school, and that's assessed outside of the school. But we can assess it, but the certificate, the diploma, whatever it is given by another organization. This is the problem for people that may be considering, or could be a problem for people considering the CP. Time management is crucial. If you don't keep to your time management, you will run out of time very quickly, because all of the things I've spoken about have to run together at the same time. Okay? If you're good at time management, this will be a breeze. It won't be a problem. Okay, now we're not going to throw you to the wolves and go, tough luck, we'll see you in 2 years' time. Of course we're not going to do that. We will support you along the way, but we can't write it for you. This is a timetable of what the CP might look like. Okay? Now what you see is your DP subjects, right? You'll see that you get a lot of time for careers-related studies. Okay? You actually have, I think, 10 periods. Now that does not mean 10 lessons of study. I think 6 of those are self-study. So you're here, you can do resources, you can do whatever you need to do, but it's not a taught lesson. The teacher will be there, or there will be somebody supervising, but it is not necessarily that you're going to have 10 taught lessons. There is time for consultation, but there's only a very short amount of time for the others. So a reflective project, you only have 3 lessons per week. Language development, 2 lessons per week. So again, you need to use where you see these, that consultation and study time, those are for you to decide what you're going to do with them. Okay? Because that is the program over the 2 years, and this is what we've given to the IB. Okay? Because if we move to the next slide, you'll see, you won't be able to see this, okay? Because this is the timeline, it's tiny, you won't be able to see it, I will send the presentation to you. Basically, this here is the reflective project over 2 years, and there are the 3 times you have to have a meeting. The rest of the time is all around your self-study. That is your language development, and there are the areas that you must meet mandatorily with your tutor, right? And the last one is your service learning, and only 3 times over 2 years. On its own, that's not too bad, but when you put them together, and they should now come up, you'll see that they don't overlap, but you've got to manage your time, and that's the most important thing here for this part of the program, the core, is your time management, right? The rest you're very capable of doing, but you really do need to manage your time. So, when Miss Nomi does the DP presentation with you, you'll look at the academic side, and some of you will be very comfortable doing the DP side. Some of you may want to go down the CP route. If you have any other questions, we'll have this week to sort of talk through them. We're not going to do it now because you need to go on to your next lesson, right? We won't actually talk about them now, but if you have any, I'd like you to actually bring them up. Miss Borry is available to speak to. Miss Emmy, myself, and Miss Nomi. We will be able to, because Ms. Nomi is the CP coordinator, the DP coordinator, and I am the CP coordinator, so we work together. All right? So whatever decisions we make together. Have a think about it. Have a think about the CP. It's a lot more freedom, but there are restrictions, if you know what I mean. And a lot of it is around what the world wants from students now when they go out into the world. So those of you who like a challenge, this is a great thing for you. Those of you who like to do a little bit of your own thing, this is for you. Because a lot of it is around your choices. And we support the choices that you make, or possibly suggest other choices if they're not feasible. So you're not left on your own for 2 years. Please don't feel that that's the case with the CP. But if you have any questions, please ask, and we will try and answer them.